AM1, certified personal trainer, low carb keto coach, back at you with another video. This will be maybe my last video on the sugar diet, and not even so much the sugar diet, but more about the guys, the influencers who were mostly the main guys pushing the sugar diet. And again, that would be Cole Robinson and Mark Smelly Bell. And again, shout out to these guys. Here's the thing, I didn't agree with the pushing of the sugar diet, sugar fasting. I thought it was a bad idea off top. As soon as I heard it, it was laughable to me. But in sort of watching and looking at how they've kind of reversed course on it, I kind of understand where they were coming from. Now, here's the thing, the sugar diet does work for weight loss. So let's be clear about that. But at what cost? And how sustainable is it? That was always my point and my question. And I thought it was a bad idea. Now, here's the thing, I am a videographer. I work in media. I understand marketing, branding, and public relations, a lot of how these things work. And I apply that same mentality as I've gone into learning more about fitness and coaching. The psychology, the psychology, the psychology. Just like with real estate, location, location, location. Psychology, when it comes to fitness, nutrition, having these discussions, it is a big, big deal. It's a big part of it. It's really the biggest part of it. I mean, if we're going to talk diet, primal, instinctual eating, right? If we're going to talk nutrition, but diet, I just use the phrase kind of interchangeably, but how people are psychologically attached to these things. And then people have issues with their weight, their appearance. And, everybody at this point wants to do everything the easiest way and with the least amount of effort. And I think to a certain degree, let me say it this way, two things. I'm totally for and have been a long time practitioner of self experimentation, trying different things to get different results and being willing to pay the cost. So if I look online or someone tells me a strategy that they use to do a body recomp, because it's really body recomposition, not just weight loss. But if I come across a strategy from someone and I try it, I understand that I took the risk and I have to bear the brunt of that. So that's a big deal about this thing where you get into this influencer thing and building communities and followers and whatever online. So that's a major part of the issue. That's kind of a bad thing, but that's just, I guess, the nature. I'm a pretty self-driven person, and I'm often by myself. My circle is small, and I don't seek out groups. I'm more of like the Sigma male type. I don't need a lot of outside stimulus. I don't need a lot of, I don't need to really follow anyone to do anything. I can carve out my own niche and carve my own way. So it's kind of hard for me to understand when people do need groups or do need to follow someone per se or to be motivated by someone. That's exactly why I got into coaching, because I realized, hey, I'll be good at this because I naturally am self motivated. So I think what happened is, and let me say more on this though. The self experimentation part is important, right? Because you want to try these different things, but at the same time, it is at your own risk. So you should be motivated to try different things, especially when you realize that most of the nutrition and metabolism information we've received over the years from, most likely indoctrinated doctors or the so-called experts, trust the science. When we realize the information is faulty, flawed, or potentially even outright fraudulent, then we're on our own. Then we want to seek out different methods. We want to do things that are fast, but what we really want is efficiency and sustainability. And we want to be careful not to try something that we think is going to be a magic bullet that has potential downsides or it backfires, especially in a sense where if you latch on to a trendy fad diet slash experiment and you kind of want to like lock into the feel goodness of being a part of a group, right? So that psychological feedback loop, because then when it doesn't work out for you, you're less inclined to admit it to yourself, to admit it to others, or if you do speak about it, then you'll be shunned because you're not 100% whatever, right? Like that's a big thing in the carnivore community. If you're not 100% carnivore, or if you're not 100% vegan, or just whatever, right? Because I don't care about those things. Keto, I am a low carb keto coach, but that's the thing. Keto isn't necessarily more about a diet than it is about getting yourself into ketosis or leveraging ketosis or fat adaptation and understanding how to actively, purposefully drive a metabolic state where you're elevating your ketone levels. That's an actual thing aside from a diet in and of itself, a lot of which can be arrived at by fasting. And I'm big on fasting and I coach people on fasting. So I just say that to say the experimentation part, which, I've been at it for a decade and a half and have learned so much. And that's why I can coach people on that, because there's a lot that I've learned about myself and I've talked to other people about it and learned from people way smarter and wiser than myself. Putting that all together, there are extreme benefits in experimenting with different things, but the self accountability part is extremely important. Meaning, if you try this stuff, it's on you. So you can't really beat up on someone who's saying online, try this thing, whether it be eat sugar all day, half the day, whatever, try it for multiple days. And then when they switch up, hey, if you had some kind of backfire of a scenario from that, or you don't like that they've pivoted, well, that's ultimately on you because you're a grown adult. Nobody made you do anything. So there's that part. So, I'm seeing, Cole and Mark Bell kind of, change their position, move more into just a rebranding of sorts, right? They're going to push more protein, leveraging that macro and bring the fat down and being more specific about, hey, well, maybe let's not have nerds and gummy bears and soda all day. And here's the thing. When you're dealing with somebody who has years, I understand their position, because when you're dealing with somebody who is on the leaner side of things, who is extremely self-motivated and who has years, potentially decades of self-experimentation, for the average person, you have to understand you can't approach it from their same lens because you don't have that metabolic bounce back. You don't have that sort of stamina, that conditioning to be able to even first deal with the potential stresses they're causing from these experiments. You're not even going to sort out the backfire of it the same way, because it's not going to hit the same way. So that has to be considered as well. And I think that's kind of what happened. I think they overestimated the average person's ability to try out something that was a pretty far out self experiment, not realizing that exactly, where we're at today. And I say that from the position of people's mindset and ability to be self responsible and self effective with these things, to really, let it run its course, and or just have a psychological framework to say, I'm going to try this at my own risk, at my own peril, and I'm going to try different things, stay on top of it, and not get just taken away with the fact where if some, charismatic influencer says you can eat sugar, because to a certain degree, that's telling a lot of people who are already metabolically disadvantaged and maybe overall cognitively disadvantaged in such a way where it's brain fog, right? It's flying under the radar. People are at a disadvantage in life and don't even realize it because of ongoing metabolic damage. Because make no mistake about it, if you have ongoing metabolic damage, metabolic syndrome, health issues, it absolutely is impacting your reasoning and cognitive ability. That's something a lot of people aren't talking about. So we're talking about mental health as it directly pertains to what you eat and how you eat protracted over time. So when you mix these two things together, along with a catchy diet brand name and a charismatic influencer, it cooks up a recipe that's extremely dangerous. And I think these guys, because Mark Bell seems super cool and Cole is like hilarious, right? Like I actually like his whole delivery and just the comic element of that. I know it's not for everybody, but I've been listening to him for years. I've been listening to Mark Bell for years, checking out his other podcasts, way before the whole sugar diet thing even came along. So when it did, I was like, I know what you guys are saying, but I don't think this is going to pan out how you think it's going to work. And sure enough, they had to kind of walk that back because, we're at a time we're so off the rails with people wanting the quick fix and not having the cognitive ability to understand what that really means and what comes with that and the level of discipline and even the discipline from the guys who are, speaking about these things, I hesitate to say pushing these things, but who, introduce these things. So, shout out to them for their ability to do that, usher in a diet strategies. I love that. And I actually love the self-experimentation part. Again, I'm a practitioner of that myself, but knowing that I am very much self-driven, I've done a lot of things from a diet, nutrition, metabolic standpoint to heal myself by myself and had to figure it out myself. just like I built a career for myself, self-taught, coming up on 10 years of that, or just completed 10 years of that. So again, the experimentation part is great. And at the same time, it was a slippery slope because we're just not being honest or fully realistic about the state of the world. So when you wield the power of being able to introduce these things and sort of coach online in a broad stroke, not account for all the variables, the different people around the world, gender differences, age, the way people are already eating. I mean, even how someone has eaten over the past 10 years, past 20 years is going to impact how their body reacts to something like a super high carb, low fat sugar diet. And these are variables that, in my mind, as I heard these things, I was like, they're not accounting for this, they're not accounting for that. This isn't going to go right. Like, I ran through a lot of different permutations and scenarios in my mind immediately. Not that I'm smarter than these guys, but hey, I mean, everybody has something to offer. But I saw these things immediately. That's part of my job, is to troubleshoot, brands and just concepts in general. Is this going to work? Let's shoot holes in this thing and go back to the drawing board. It's just how I think based on the kind of work I do. So just applying it to, marketing, diet, strategy, concept, name online, and if its efficacy versus how people are going to receive it and try to apply it, and understanding, the average person that, average soccer mom that doesn't really read and ingest metabolism style training, fitness style information all day is going to hear sugar diet and say, oh, okay, perfect. And just run with that and run off the deep end with it. And yeah, it's just not sustainable. So part of it is, you know, these strategies can work, but we want to think long term. We're seeing what's going on with it. I understand there's still some stragglers. People are still trying to hold on and say, well, whether Cole is going to do it or Mark is going to do it, I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to click up with this other creator. Because again, people were building whole YouTube channels and identities around this whole sugar diet thing. So some people really feel cheated. Like, it's obvious that they were standing on a rug that got kind of pulled, but at the end of the day, they were the ones holding the rug because they were just listening to what someone else was saying, but they weren't fully prepared. There has to be a certain level of accountability listening to any influencer, anyone online, myself included, and anything that I talk to you guys about, I've vetted out what I'm saying, or I'll outright say, hey, make sure you understand this is my perspective on this, and you want to cross-reference this with a whole lot of other information. Now, the trick is that takes a whole lot of other time to get the whole other information, and you can't just get lost in the sauce of thinking, oh, this guy is going to tell me the magic thing. Now, that is my goal, to actually tell you some magic things, but you're going to hate to hear a lot of what I have coming up, but I have a lot of magic in store for you guys for sure. So you want to like and subscribe and all the good stuff, and hit the bell icon or whatever, hit the plus icon, subscribe plus, they're always changing things on YouTube, but I have a lot more coming up for you guys. But just want to touch in more on the sugar diet thing, or more importantly, the psychology behind the influencers that are delivering certain diet strategies and concepts, fads, if you will. And then, more importantly, the idea that, hey, if you're going to go it alone, and you have to go it alone because you are on your own relative to, the authorities and experts who tell you what to eat, go that way, if you will. But if you're going to go it alone and go it on your own, which you should, and, get your information, internet, online, YouTube, whatever, understand ultimately it is you and it is your choice, and nobody owes you anything in that perspective. Nobody's making you eat anything, adopt a certain diet strategy. Is totally on you. So there has to be the self-accountability part, period, no matter what. And if you feel like it's overwhelming to learn all this stuff, yes, it is, because it's a lot. And one caveat, one thing you do get, bit of grace you do get, is the fact that we all have been misled and led astray about what we should be eating. So there's that. However, the flip side of that is you don't have any excuses, and no, you don't have the time. You can't run from it because you literally wake up in one of these body things every day. We have entirely too much information about how to fix this stuff. Yes, it is confusing, but we do have so much information that is available that if you even applied 10, 20% of some of these strategies, even just from random influencers and YouTubers or whatever, you would lose weight, and you actually would fix your metabolic syndrome issues for sure. So that's not even the case. By and large, from what I'm seeing in my direct experience in my coaching, people are just finding excuses to run away from this stuff, which is exactly why the magic bullet sort of things are so appealing to most. But that is a failing proposition. It's never going to work. You're going to have to use something that is tried and true, something that's been around for decades or centuries or millennia. And those are the kind of strategies that I'm looking to leverage and coach on, that I am leveraging and looking to coach more on. More traditional kind of things that people have been doing all around the world for hundreds of years, thousands of years. It's the obvious way to go. More on that later, though. I appreciate you guys rocking with me. AM1, get fit, get free. I'm done with y'all.